Whether you're trying to pick up girls or just make new friends, the ability to keep a conversation going is key in being able to connect with others. And while talking with someone may sound simple, there's a difference between being able to carry on a conversation and being able to carry on a good conversation that makes someone interested in you. You might think you're good at talking to others until you realize that you've been talking nonstop for 5 minutes straight and the other person has totally tuned out. So, how do you keep someone interested and engaged so that you can come away with a new friend, someone's number, or even just a quality connection? Today, on How to Charisma, we're going to look at 6 key tools you can use to keep a conversation going. Let's look at number 1. Ask open-ended questions. When you're talking to someone, you want to avoid asking questions that can have a simple yes-no answer. For instance, instead of asking someone, "Do you like where you work?" ask them, "What do you like about where you work?" While the first question can be answered with a simple yes or no, the second question requires the person to respond in a more detailed way, which will further the conversation. Oftentimes, when they are thinking about your question, this will also spark other avenues of conversation that come to them that they want to talk about. Let's take a look at an interview with Kanye West on the Jimmy Kimmel Show.
Climbing on your head. Do you dress them? Do you pick their outfits?
Mm-hmm.
You do? Is that fun for you?
Mm-hmm.
Do you design outfits for them?
Mm-hmm.
You do? Do they love that? I mean, do they understand?
In this clip, Jimmy Kimmel is asking a lot of yes-no questions, and as you saw, Kanye's responses were exactly what you might expect. Now, not every yes-no question has to end at one word. In the end, it is up to the other person if they want to talk about it more. After the last question, Kanye actually continued speaking on his answer. He just waited till there was a question he felt like talking about.
Draw something and then it becomes their clothes?
Yeah, my daughter went to a fashion camp for 5 days.
While some questions may be able to be answered with just a yes or no, the type of person you're talking to and the mood of the conversation really determines if they stop at yes or no. Number 2. Find things in common. Have you ever been talking to someone and felt like the conversation wasn't going anywhere, but then you suddenly realized you both grew up in the same town or are fans of the same sports team? If so, you've discovered one of the best ways to have a great conversation: finding something in common. How can you find something in common with the person you're talking to? By asking the other person questions. Let's take a look at this in action.
Yeah. Whereabouts in London do you live? General kind of...
I live in Queen's Park. Do you know?
I used to live in Hartland
No.
Road.
Really?
Yes!
Oh, that
just next to the subway station,
Well, I'm
or
like-
the London Underground.
That is mad.
I used to go to the discount chicken place right on the corner.
It's now Mr. Fish.
Oh, well.
In this clip, Craig Ferguson asks Cillian Murphy where he grew up, and then they realize that they grew up in the same part of London. This gives them something in common to talk about and completely transforms the conversation from asking one question after another to really connecting and enjoying talking to the other person. When you get to this point, something magical happens. This is that you both are actually interested in the other person's answers. Remember how people love to talk about themselves? In many conversations, we pretend to be interested in the other person's answers, but in reality, we are mostly focused on what we're saying rather than what they're saying. If you find something you have in common, then this sets the conversation up for a dopamine party, and it can pretty much go on forever. Let's look at number 3. Put out good energy. Have you ever talked to someone and found them to be really negative or pessimistic, or that they seemed bored or uninterested? If so, you probably wanted to get away from them as soon as possible. That's because we're naturally drawn to people who put out good energy. Whether that's someone who's friendly, funny, or just interested in others, we want to be around people who make us feel good. And if someone makes us feel good, we're more likely to open up. Look at how Jeff Goldblum uses this tool in this interview.
Welcome back.
I miss you horribly. When was the last time I was on this show?
It was pre-COVID. I know that.
Yes,
It's been a while.
You did so well.
I'll tell
Thank you for leading us through dark times and in challenging
No.
times.
Very good, man.
You're a light. You're a light in the world.
As you can see, Jeff Goldblum begins the interview by complimenting Jimmy Fallon, calling him a light in the world. This immediately creates a connection between him and Jimmy Fallon, and they go on to have a great conversation. Like this interview, when you're talking with someone, Focus on putting out good energy and making the other person feel good about themselves. This will help them open up more. And someone who's open and receptive to others is a great conversationalist. Not to mention, they will look forward to talking to you every time. Number 4. Interested over interesting. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that in order for someone else to find you interesting, that you have to entertain them. Obviously, if you're entertaining, it can make someone interested in you, but there's another trick that you can use with that or use by itself. There's nothing that people love more than talking about themselves and feeling like you're interested in what they have to say. The movie 40-Year-Old Virgin shows an example of this. Let's take a look.
Maybe it depends on what you like.
What do you like?
We have a great section of do-it-yourself.
Do you like to do it yourself?
Sometimes. I mean, if the mood strikes.
How is the mood striking you now?
Now, obviously, this is a movie and there's exaggeration which makes it humorous, but the point is still relevant. While we wouldn't recommend only asking someone questions about themselves, this scene shows that Steve Carell's character is making it a priority to put more focus on the woman that he's talking to instead of on himself. By constantly refocusing the conversation on her, he is being interested, not interesting. In not trying to impress her, he actually ends up impressing her more. Now, you should also talk about yourself in conversations, but just be sure you're actively letting them talk about themselves while showing that you're listening. So next time you're struggling to find something to say, try asking someone about themselves and see where it goes. It could be as simple as where they grew up, what they study in school, or what they do in their free time. Number 5, learn to read people. What does it mean if the person you're talking to suddenly shifts and folds their arms, angling their body away from you? If you're good at reading people, you'll know that something just made them uncomfortable. Whether that's something you said or maybe just something they were thinking about. It's important to learn to read people so that you can adjust what you're talking about or even simply ask how they're doing. James Bond is a master at reading people and deciphering body language. He uses this information to inform the direction of the conversation. Let's take a look.
You put on a good show. But ever since we sat down, you haven't stopped looking at your bodyguards. The 3 of them is a bit excessive. They're controlling you. They're not protecting you.
James Bond can tell that Severin is uncomfortable by her body language. That gives him further insight into her, and he can adjust the conversation accordingly. Now, obviously, this is more upfront than you probably want to be, and it's James Bond, so not exactly what our daily conversations look like, but the point still stands. Learn to read body language and act accordingly. You need to adjust to the body language signs of who you're talking to in order to create the best connection and overall best conversation. Like James Bond, practice becoming an expert at reading people and understanding what different body language means. You can even use this for yourself to help people feel closer to you, like leaning in when they're talking or mirroring their body language. Let's look at the last tool. Be vulnerable. It's easy to think of vulnerability as a bad thing and as a thing that should be hidden from others so that you appear strong and confident. However, when you aren't afraid to open up with others, they'll recognize that you're not just putting on a facade and will be more likely to open up to you. This will help you take your conversation to a deeper place and ultimately give you more to talk about. Being real is one of the best traits you can have and will set you up for your best relationships, experiences, health, and pretty much anything else you can have in life. Michael Phelps, who's the most decorated Olympian of all time, has opened up about his struggles with mental illness, which shows a more vulnerable side than what you're used to seeing from high-level athletes.
You know, for me, for so long, I didn't have self-love. I had no self-confidence, and I didn't like who I saw in the mirror. So I just got kind of sick of it and hit a very low point in my life where I didn't want to be alive anymore and decided that I was going to make a change.
By sharing moments of vulnerability, you are showing that you are someone they can have a real conversation with. This also shows that you aren't worried about what other people think of you, which demonstrates confidence. So, next time you're talking with someone, don't be afraid to share something embarrassing or personal about yourself. Don't take it too far though, as there are some things that should be kept to yourself or are better shared at other times. But Essentially, just keep it real and don't try to hide your vulnerabilities. Let us know in the comments what topics you'd like covered next. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.